What's up, guys? Nostal-Gi-Oh here, back with some more Yu-Gi-Oh content, and today we got Andrei, one of my local players that we play at the same card shop with, and he's been doing really well with Despia recently, and wanted to show it off on the channel, so we're gonna be doing that. He went 4-1, right? Last locals 4-1.
Yes.
All right, so got top four. A pretty decent sized locals as well. So it's like 20, 30 players, something like that. The UI one.
It was big enough to have 5 rounds, so
Right.
it was 24, 25.
Yeah. Pretty good size. So yeah, we're gonna get right into this deck profile. So I'll shut up and you go ahead and get right into it.
All right. So I've been playing Despia for a while. I've been trying a lot of different cards in it. So I think this is a pretty well curated build. So just to go over some of the engines. So first thing obviously is going to be the Despias. We got 3 Albaz, your best normal summon in the game, or for this deck. Then I got 2 Despian Tragedies. Tragedy searches all the other Despia monsters, so when it's sent or banished off of card effects, so we have a couple ways to proc that. Just a really good searcher to have. It also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it to bring back your branded spells. That does come up sometimes with when your opponent starts popping your theater, or you're running out of cards in deck to search. Then you have 1 ad libitum, 1 dramaturge. So these two, they can be kind of bricky, but the recursion and the power that they give you is just too much to not play them. So the ad libitum lets you bring back any Despia or level 8 or higher fusion from banished or grave, which means you can use your DPE as a resource as well, or if your opponent DD crows an important fusion like the DPE, or just gets rid of it somehow, it's not dead, you can bring it back at some point. And then Dramaturge, it's a 3k beater. It comes back when it's used as fusion material. And it has a trigger effect when the opponent summons an extra deck monster. You can target and basically veil a monster on field, which does come up. It's a little bit of negation the deck does have. Then I play 1
And
Fallen
that
of
negate
Albaz.
effect is really cool, actually. Like it's like so solid.
Yeah, no, and it comes up a lot because a lot of times, like, it can trigger not just when your opponent summons, but also when you summon. So you can kind of force it with a branded in red or super poly sometimes.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, so it's definitely like you gotta put a bit of effort to trigger it, but it comes in clutch when you need it. So um, it's kind of icing on the cake for that card. Then the last, I consider this a Despia monster, Fallen of Albaz. Usually this is just a summon off of Coritis to give that floating effect a little bit more punch. The card itself is kind of bricky. It's a really good card with not enough payoff. I think the structure deck will definitely do a lot for this card.
Oh yeah.
Just having those targets is going to be so important. But I've been experimenting with it. I've played it in the past to good effect, so just a one-off, so I don't draw it too much.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Then we have the branded opening, 3 of. It's basically special any. It lets you special any of your Despia monsters. Another really good application for it is you can actually search the Despia to your hand. So if your opponent has you under a wind barrier statue, you can add it to your hand instead. To normal summon your Albaz. It lets you basically start your plays in the draw phase, so you can't get drawled. Lets you play around Veiler. So that effect that application comes up a lot, where I will brand it opening in the draw phase, pitch anything, search the Albaz, or especially Albaz, then Albaz triggers, and the amount of times people try to draw me on the resolution of this chain, just for me to go draw face.
Yeah, that's like really cool that you can play around roll with that. That's like really solid additional point to add for that.
Yeah, no, it's really, it comes in really clutch, just because you're turning off basically 2 hand traps, just since you're playing around that Veiler too. So it really it can really help in just kind of building your board a little safer. The deck, unfortunately, is really like somewhat fragile to hand traps, so this helps play around a few of them. And this is because this card stands for effect. You can trigger the tragedy off of it, so it can really you can really like gain advantage off of this card, and you're still not under draw, so you get one more surge if your opponent is playing draw.
Mm-hmm.
So that comes up a lot, and the fact that it stands for cost means if you get ashed on it, it's not the end of the world. It makes ash a 1-for-1 rather than a +1 for your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good application, a really good card. And its second effect to protect from the grave can come up a lot. It can sometimes really just hold a board down. It has some application with DPE if you want to avoid it going to grave or getting banished. If there's like a Shenshin or something. So just a good all-around card. Then I play 3 branded in reds. I was convinced when I read this card that this would make Despia tier 1. I don't think it goes that far, but fusion summoning on your opponent's turn is just way too good.
Our turn.
Yeah, actually, not in this particular local, but I had one match where in an earlier run where I branded and read on a Flanders player's main phase. And I was like, you can normal summon on my turn, I can fusion summon on your turn. So
it's only fair.
Yeah, so the card is really good. This card actually also lets this deck play through Scythe. So my last match was against Cypress Outlook. And game 2, I got Scythed. I didn't have the hand traps to stop it, but my hand was full gas. So I just set up, I did a branded opening, threw a Despian Tragedy in the grave, I think I grabbed Dramaturge, normal summon the Alubird to grab the branded in red, just a lot of setup. So, I didn't do anything on my opponent's turn other than set stuff up. And when their turn came around, I wasn't sight locked anymore. They also put a Lancia on board too. So I basically got to just plus on their turn, and because of that, it let me push forward and basically win that game even through a Scythe lock. So
that's nice being able to play through Scythe.
Yeah, no, it's insane. I mean, at that point we had a crowd of people just watching us, and when they saw that branded in red resolve, it was pretty cool. Just everyone thought I was basically done for with that Scythe lock. So, and that's kind of the thing I like about this deck is it plays a lot on your opponent's turn with the current build. So, just kind of neat. And so branded in red can do some pretty crazy chain links. When I get to the extra deck, I'll kind of go over those. But just a very powerful card. I don't mind opening with one. It's really good to search. It just really keeps your engine going. So definitely a 3F in my opinion.
Makes sense.
And then the last branded card is Despia Theater. So one of it's kind of your poly. It's a little weak to Ghost Ogre. The amount of times I got Ghost Ogre with this card, and that was the end of my turn, was too many to count. But if they leave it on board, it lets you fusion summon, so you can trigger your Despias. It's not, the only restriction is level 8 or higher fusion, so you can really fuse into a really big pool of cards. So the other thing that's for the grind game is if your opponent leaves this on board, because of its second effect that when non-fusion fairies leave the field by your opponent's card effect or battle, you get to float into those fusions again. So it gives a lot of recursion to the deck. So just a very threatening card. And I don't mind drawing it, but I don't want to brick on it. So just a one-off.
Makes sense.
Then the last two, consider these unofficial branded cards, the Gold Spark and Foolish Burial. So what you do is you send Tragedy off of these, and it counts as being banished or sent to the grave by card effect. So you get a search off of that.
And then you get it back. So it's a +1.
Yeah, have you? And, with this deck, you can definitely drag a game out to the point where that Gold Star finishes resolving.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that tragedy is just a bonus. And this deck can make some really grindy games just due to the way it kind of plays out and the resource management. So Gold Sark is definitely a very good card for that matter. And then Foolish Burial, it puts the tragedy engraved, so you don't get it back, but it's engraved to grab off branded in red. So, each of the cards, I don't mind seeing either one. They have their utility. So then I have the Dogmatica package. Obviously, we're playing a fusion-based deck. Dogmatica's just pair really well with that, and it gives you a little bit more power on turn one. So I play 3 Ecclesia the Virtuous. If I have a fusion on board, she's an extender. So her effect to lock you out of the extra deck is only if the search resolves successfully, or rather if it doesn't get negated. So, if there's a lot of cases where I'll, summon her, she gets stopped, go into Verte. I've already burned one of their hand traps. A really good card to play. No reason not to. A lot of times too, you won't normal summon your Alibor because of branded opening. So having her to normal summon is just icing on the cake. And then you search the 1 Fleur-de-Lis. Again, it's an extender. If there's an extra deck monster on field, her effect doesn't lock you out of the extra deck. So it's just a good card all around. 25 body on a special summon is pretty good. She boosts up to 3k, so just a small engine. I don't think the Maximus is that good this format, so I think just playing these works for this particular deck.
Sounds good. Do you like the Dogmatica package in here? I know that this deck has seen a lot of iterations for you, so do you think this is really where you like the Despia engine or the Despia deck with like the Dogmatica, the DPE hand traps build?
Yeah, so I think until the structure deck comes out, I think this is probably one of the more consistent builds. I don't want to say the most consistent because there's a lot of Despia players out there that might have better decks, but I think as far as the deck goes, you're playing with essentially 6 cards that are powerful on their own, the 2 Nadir Servant, the 2 Fusion Destiny, and then the Gold Sark and Foolish Burial. So you're very likely to draw one of those power cards. And the thing about the Despia engine is its problem is that it needs a lot of resources to get going. But once it gets going, it can really keep up that grind game. I think it's one of the grindiest engines I've ever played. You can actually out-resource Cyber's Eldritch, believe it or not. There was a point in the game where his extra deck was basically out of cards, and I've cycled through 2 or 3 fusions. So I think when it comes to just consistency in general, this has like a very good balance of consistency with power. Mm-hmm. So, and then the Nadir Servants play a big role in that. I don't play so like I mentioned, consistency is really important in fusion decks. So I don't play the Shadal package at all. I don't think it's really powerful, this format. A lot of decks can play around it. My targets off of the Nadir Servants are actually just the Albaz fusions and an Elder Entity. So, which lets you plus in the end phase, kind of plays, lets you, grab more branded spells. So it's just a very good card to see.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah, Nadir Servant's like one hell of a power card.
Yeah, I'm really sad it went down to 3. It's honestly one of the best cards for fusion decks, especially like anything Albaz related. Mm-hmm. But you know what, I can see why they were semi-limited, so we just gotta be thankful it's down to 2 and not to 1.
Yeah.
Let's see, so then we have the Fusion Destiny package, the Dasher Celestial, and the 2 Fusion Destinies. So not much to say about this. It's a pretty standard engine nowadays. You're playing a fusion deck. That DPE gives you more value in this deck just to little interactions between the Despia stuff and the fact that DPE is a level 8 fusion. So there is technically you can use Fusion Destiny as a starter in some builds of Despia by using Destiny Hero Danger to send a Tragedy and one of your Destiny heroes. I've played around with that, but I think just keeping it as small as possible is the best. You got to play a lot more Destiny heroes to get that to be good. So, not much to say there. It's TPE.
Yeah, the slim package makes sense.
Yeah, and it going down to two really was impactful because now your breaks are the same number as your fusion destinies. I actually want to see this card. It's a really powerful, especially like when you burn through a good chunk of your opponent's interactions. Sometimes putting that DPE out once you burn through, the Asher branded opening, they Valor your Aliber, they go spell your branded in red. Then dropping Fusion Destiny, it's not a lot of decks can keep up with that. And the engine with a lot of gas, it's a draw 2. The Dasher lets you special summon or whatever monsters you draw. So just a lot of advantage there.
Yeah, for sure.
Then the hand traps. I think 9 hand traps is the perfect ratio for a 40 card deck, especially one that doesn't have too many 1-card starters. Because I'm very likely to see 1, fairly likely to see 2, and not very likely to brick. So I played the 3 Nibiru's, just very powerful, wins games. My first game of the last match against Cyber Outledge, turn 1, my theater got hit with a Ghost Ogre. I was not fusion summoning. My hand was I was in a pretty bad spot. Everyone thought I was going to lose. And before they entered battle phase, I dropped a nib that forced the Griffin Rider to tag out. They were left with an access code and the Brave token. Hit me for 73. Came back next turn and just OTK'd.
Nib is a power card for sure, especially with Imperm or Gamma. Like that is like OTK against mini decks right now.
Yeah, no, that's a big reason why I played this particular lineup of trap, because if I see Nib in any of these, I can let them basically build whatever board they want. The real cool thing too is lately, a lot of the Omni negates people play are a one and done kind of deal. Baroness is a once per on field. The Griffin Rider has to spin back. So sometimes just trading the nib for that negate, even if you don't clear the board, you get rid of the 1 Omni negate. So just too powerful not to play. Then I chose to play the Imperm. This was a Valor beforehand. I wanted to do light and dark hand traps. But the problem is the Valor is, I think it's a lot more limited than the Imperm in its application. Imperm is good as a 6 card. Valor is awful as a 6 card.
For sure.
So an Imperm doesn't have the face restriction, so this was testing with it. I would definitely change this card for a Ghost Ogre in the future, but I think it did its job when it needed to.
All 3 or just 1?
I think I'd change the 3 Imperms for 3 Ghost Ogres.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just Ghost Ogre does kind of the same thing. I think in the current meta, it has a very similar place to Imperm with a little more application, and it's a light hand trap, so you can fuse it because all your Despia fusions are light and dark.
That makes sense. That's a really good added thing for that with Ghost Ogre that I wasn't really thinking of, but it is cool that Ghost Ogre plus Nib can still stop any board that has Griffin as the negate because it has to go back to the deck.
Yeah, no, that's and the power even against just anything that field spells are so good nowadays that hitting one is just it's just all kinds of good. It lets you play around through so many decks. Obviously in the mirror match it would be pretty impactful. Getting rid of the map for Flouanderies, which is probably this deck's weakest matchup.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and just being able to get rid of the body, I think, is so valuable this format because it's very much a have a body on board format. And then my last hand trap is Gamma. I will never not like Gamma in a deck that starts with spells.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's too powerful, too impactful. I've been testing a lot of times. I'll start a Fusion Destiny under a Gamma protection. The friend I test with a lot, he is it happens so often. He never ashes my Fusion Destiny because he always assumes I have the Gamma if I start with it. So um, just a very impactful hand trap. Obviously, it's light as well, so even if I brick on the driver or the gammas, they're not dead in hand. And one of my favorite things to do is if I have gamma and branded opening, I'll actually start with the branded opening, and if they don't ash it, I'll actually send the gamma since it's gonna be dead once that Albaz comes out. Yeah, so it's a free discard, just a lot of utility.
Yeah, that's like crazy cool because you don't send for cost, so you get to know, if they don't ash, then you just pitch the game. But that's like really smart.
Yeah, it's a pretty handy interaction, and it lets you keep all the more powerful cards in hand while kind of guaranteeing that branded opening will resolve. So just a very good hand trap. I think the driver is well worth the break.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last card, Super Poly. So I'm known at our locals as the guy that yells Super Poly. I love this card. I think when I saw that it came back to 3 after my hiatus, I was like, what deck can I play this in? And this is the deck to play this in. Especially with current format, this card is basically like a free win against Phantom Knight. Then what else? There's the Cyber's Outlet is actually a pretty good matchup as well because they also go into a lot of darks. Same thing with Drytrons if they put out a lot of light monsters. So with Despias, all their fusions are a light or a dark. So if the deck plays any sort of light or dark monster, I can super poly away my Despias. So a lot of times you can dodge an imperm by normal summoning the Albaz. If I'm playing against Eldritch, I can set a Tragedy to play around the Solemn Judgment. Just a lot of utility in this card, and obviously if they put up 2 darks, which a lot of decks will do, that's just a Starving Venom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that card seems insane in the Despia strategy.
Yeah, definitely overperformed. It can be a little bit bricky at times, and there's definitely matchups where it's not good at all, but, that's what the side deck is for, so... So I guess I'll go into the side deck next.
Do the extra first. The extra is more enticing.
Sure, yeah. So we got extra deck. So you can see it's pretty fusion heavy. So we got the One Skinian. This card can win games on its own. It's a dark, a light, and a Despia. The amount of decks that'll put up a light and a dark is actually pretty shocking. Especially with Phantom Knights, a lot of Phantom Knight variants will play. They'll either end on a Dragoon and a Dagda, or they'll end on. I've seen Dragoons and Dagdas. I've seen DPEs and Dagdas against the Cyber Dragon matchup, which I've been against before. You'll see the Cyber Dragon Infinity and the Dragoon. Same thing with. Just so many decks will leave a light in the dark thinking they're playing around Super Poly. And you just normal summon a Despia, fuse away the whole, 2 monsters plus 1 of yours. It's just a lot of value for the Super Poly. And then its effects are pretty powerful. So as a quick effect, you can basically armor any of the opponent's extra deck monsters or banish them. So you can bring, if you fuse away a DPE, you can bring the DPE back to your side. Or if your opponent, if you're playing against Dogmatica and they have the Shaddoll they haven't summoned, you can just banish it in response to their Schism. So just a lot of utility out of a monster that's just good because of how it's summoned. And it also does burn damage if it destroys a monster by battle. Which can be really helpful for the OTK. I just think this card it's wrong to not play at least one. It's just way too much value.
Yeah, I imagine every time that it comes up, it just like pretty much wins the game.
Yeah, if I summon a Pristinian, I'm probably winning that game. Usually that turn, and it's it turns Super Poly into it's hand neutral if you manage to resolve it. So just a very very good card.
Mm-hmm.
A very very good card. So Guardian Chimera, I played two. Um, I heard early on people saying it was a one-off. I've always played two of them. So this is your main branded and red target. It's a monster from hand and monsters from field. And basically the only variation is you need at least one from field, at least one from hand, three different names.
Mm-hmm.
And then when on summon, it destroys cards on your opponent's side of the field, non-targeting up to the number of monsters used on field, and you get to draw cards up to the number of cards you banished from your hand.
Yeah, this card is insane. It's like,
Yeah, no, it's honestly it's crazy all of its own. Like the fact that it's a 33 body is just so impactful too.
mm-hmm.
You can beat over so many things, and so the big combo and one of the things I really like about this deck is so your ideal branded and red scenario is you grab one of these three Despias from the grave, banish one on the field, and then two from the hand, and you can do up to a chain link 4 on your opponent's turn.
That's wild.
So yeah, and it's it's every time this card was solved, the Guardian Chimera was solved, I usually won that game because the Guardian Chimera would banish. Let's say I would do a Tragedy, Dramaturge, and oftentimes an Aluber and on field.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd pop one, draw two. Then I would do the Tragedy as chain link 2, search that Aluber for follow up, and then the Dramaturge to cap off the chain link. If I don't get that Dramaturge back, it's not the end of the world. But there are very few hand traps that will stop a monster special summoning itself from the banished zone. So the chain links can get pretty wild. It makes this card just so much card advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just too good of a card not to play. I think 3 is definitely too many. It's not that the card isn't worth playing at 3, but your extra deck is really tight. There's a lot of good options.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing a third one, usually it'd be a weird situation in which you would want a third one.
Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't come up too much, but the second comes up a good bit, right?
Yeah, the second one can be really, it's just very important to have because one won't always close out the game. And because the fusion materials are as generic as they get, it's almost always something you can go into. So sometimes it'll be that, that branded in red, the last one going into that second Guardian Chimera that just closes it out for the opponent. So the second one comes up a lot. Oftentimes, resolving one will usually pretty much close out the game. You're drawing power card after power card. So just a very good card.
Mm-hmm.
So then get into some of the Despia fusions. We got the Coritis and then the 2 Masquerades. So the reason I played this particular ratio is because obviously I don't have Albaz fusions to put in yet. Oh. You just refresh that. So I'll just talk about load. Yeah, so they're very generic. Any Despia plus a light and a dark will turn into either of these two. The Coritis is just it blanks everything that's not a level 8 fusion, which can be really powerful because not many decks play fusions right now. Obviously, some of them do, but anything that's playing a fusion is generally going to be giving you super poly targets. So the fact that this can blank synchros, links, and rituals, just about anything, is really powerful. This card plays really well against Eldritch because you can blank their Golden Lord on Resurrection. So it goes from 35 to 0, and when its attack returns, it stays at 25. Same thing with access code. If they bring out access code, you just blank the access code, and there goes the attack gain.
Mm-hmm.
And then it floats when it's removed from field by anything other than battle or being bounced. So, if the access code pop it, you drop the Albaz, and the Albaz turns the access code into Starving Venom, or you can go into one of your other Despias. Just the floating is very useful on this card.
Mm-hmm.
And then Masquerade, this card is really cheesy. Your opponent has to pay 600 to play any card effect or card. So you can use this if you don't OTK your opponent, but you get them down to 1,200 or less. This card usually just means they're not winning the game anymore. It's kind of like Gaga for Cowboy for game.
Yeah, I've seen it. That burn, it really, really adds up.
Yeah, especially if you get two on board, it's very unlikely your opponent is going to win, because they're going to basically focus their resources on outing this card. It floats. It doesn't burn when it floats, but it's another body, so it's just a very annoying card to play against. I don't bring out two very often though, because the card doesn't do anything other than the burn. So this is really just I played two of them because I don't think 3 Coritis is that important.
Mm-hmm.
Having the 2 Coritis is good because you can Coritis fuse into Coritis again, which can come up in really weird but common situations. But this card, it's not a Despia, so it doesn't gain the benefits Coritis does.
Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes going into that second one, it's just that second Despia target, so it's not a bad card to play two of right now.
Mm-hmm.
My order got mixed up. So I did cheat a couple games with this. If a lot of my games dragged out close to time, so game 3 I would put up a Masquerade, and if my opponent plays, I win. Unfortunately, with time rules, it's just the way it is. So I'd rather have a win than a draw. So It is what it is. Then I play the DP. I think this card's pretty self-explanatory. It's also a level 8 fusion, so the Despia supports it really well. You can actually protect it off of branded opening from its own destruction effect.
Oh, that's really
sometimes. Cool. Yeah, so sometimes you can pop it, keep it, and you still have the body to attack. So, or if you know your opponent is going to banish it somehow, you can surprise them by banishing the branded opening instead. So it's just a very powerful card. No reason not to play it. Then the 2 super poly targets, I'll just put them together. We got the Starving Venom, 2 darks. It gains attack, which can be really can come up sometimes if you're facing like a towers, like the Arrival Stivers, which I played against Adignisters at one point. This card can beat over just about anything since it doesn't target to gain its attack. And then you can destroy it with your own DPE to Raigeki your opponent. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's just a very, very powerful card. I really like it. And then the 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp, fairly generic. A lot of decks will leave a Baron, and a lot of the decks that play Auroradon will leave Baron and Auroradon on board. So it can come up. It's just a very generic super poly target. So it also can protect your monsters from being targeted. So if your opponent, like, if you make this before normal summoning Albaz, you make this a dark, you normal summon the Albaz, now they can't imperm or Valor. So
that's really cool.
So it's got some utility. Then Albion, this was almost always a Nadir send. It searches during end phase the turn it was sent to the grave for a branded, and it can add it to your hand or set it to the field. So a lot of times your turn 1 play will be to normal Albaz, grab the Theater, fuse into a Coritis, but now you don't have a branded in red, which is a really powerful follow-up. And if you grab the branded in red, you might not have the Despia engraved to trigger it. This solves that. If this is engraved, you grab the Theater, you fuse, then you use this to set a branded in red. And That's that. Then the one Titanic clad. I didn't want to overdo it with the Albaz fusions because it's not that great of a card to resolve yet. So Titanic clad was the more generic one, and then in a pinch I can send it for to grab a Fleur de Lis or an Ecclesia.
Mm-hmm. Get the other engines going.
Yeah, and in the scenario where I get Maximus, I can send this and then fuse away on their turn.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just a card to have. I might cut it going forward. Then in the test, just a good send off Nadir Servant.
Very powerful.
Yeah, just no reason not to play it. Last I played the Link Rebo and the Predaplant. Obviously, Predaplant in a fusion deck. Not only can you send the Fusion Destiny, but you can send the Super Poly. And this is just really impactful because it can make an opponent's monster dark. So it's a Starving Venom all on its own.
Oh, yeah. Very, very good utility.
Yeah. It's just, the day this card gets banned, I won't be surprised, but it'll definitely be a hit to fusion decks the world over.
Yeah, for sure. Indirectly.
And then
sorry, yeah. DPE did it,
It wasn't Dragoon, it was DPE. So then the last one is going to be the Link Rebo. So if you normally sometimes you'll have the Tragedy in like your Dogmatica engine, or you don't have a way to get to the Albaz. So what you can do is you can normal summon the Tragedy, link it into a Link Rebo. Now you have an extra deck monster to do Dogmatica plays. You have a Tragedy Engraved to do if you open Branded in red. Because this card's biggest weakness is having a Despia Engrave. And it's also a dark, so you can use it with that Branded in red to go into one of your fusions. You don't get to trigger your Tragedy when you use it as material, but it's there. Also, its effect from grave to send from field can trigger your Tragedy. That only came up once, and I was not in a good position, so I'm thinking of changing this to Relinquish Anima.
Gotcha.
For the going second board, but it's an option, it's not a bad card. It did its job when it needed to. So
Anima just has like an effect that'll come up, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you go into an Anima, you can actually dodge imperms and with the Branded in red with that same Tragedy. So you can start breaking the board while going into your fusion. So this has some like protection from attacks, but it doesn't come up.
Gotcha.
Really too often. Yeah. So that's the extra deck, and then the side deck, just pretty standard. 3 draws, hits almost any deck that plays Brave. DD Crow. I started this in against Scythe because it's also a hand trap I can fuse away. It has a lot of good utility, this format, and it's not once per turn. So if I draw multiples, that graveyard's getting emptied.
Mm-hmm. It's really good against DPE, of course, too.
Yeah, just DPE, and basically anything that needs its graveyard.
Yeah.
Then I have the Lightning Storms. I played 3 triple tactics as a going first card. It's hand traps can be really impactful against you, and there's a lot of like good side out options. So I can side out the 3 imperms for the 3 triple tactics, and it can come up. I just like this card.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 3 TC Boos. This deck plays around TC Boo a lot better than Dogmatica Invoked, because almost all your fusions are different types, and you're rarely putting multiples on board unless you're in a good game position. But it didn't really perform when it needed to. So it is what it is, though.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the build.
I like it. Would you is there any other changes you would make other than like the Ghost Ogres for imperms and potentially the Anima for the Linkuriboh?
So I think going forward, I'm definitely going to take out the Titanic Clad and the Albaz for a 3rd Tragedy, and Titanic Clad for a Predaplant Dragostapelia. It's another super poly target.
Is that the 3 dark one?
No, so that's the dark and the fusion.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, the Despia has more interactions with the Quiritis because it can make those high level fusions level 1, so you can blink them with Quiritis. And
Gotcha.
it's a quick effect Veiler, so the Titanic Lad never came up, other than the few times I summoned it. And right now, Albaz just until the fusions for it come out, it's just not really worth playing.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and just sometimes just the threat of it. You know, the people I play against know I play it sometimes, so I might make them think twice about getting rid of that Quiritis. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those will probably be the major changes.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, thanks for doing the deck profile, man. And you know, April coming soon.
Yeah, the vengeance or the return of this deck is tier 1.
Mm-hmm. You have any shout outs or anything before we end the video?
Yeah, so I'll shout out my boy Daniel. You know, he's the one I test against. Helped me get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! After a long-term hiatus. Shout out the wife for letting me go to these locals. She'll be salty she wasn't first, but, you know, the senpai was first. And then shout out to, you know, the people down at Tournament City Games just for hosting and having cards.
Mm-hmm. Down in Frederick. You guys got to check it out. Frederick, Maryland, baby.
Yeah, if you want to get super polyed by me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for getting on, man. That's going to be everything for the video. Thanks, guys, for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. And goodbye.